Welcome to Prodigal, the podcast, where we discuss inspiring stories of self-discovery and transformation. Join your host, Don Jackson, and his dynamic co-host, Big Sean, as they lead you through captivating conversations, all designed to ignite your spirit and broaden your horizons. Whether you're on a journey of personal growth or simply enjoy staying up to date on the latest in culture, you've made the right choice. Get ready to be inspired, entertained, and enlightened. This is Prodigal, the podcast.
Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Prodigal the Podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Don Jackson. Also joining me, my co-host, Big Sean. Big Sean. How you doing, man?
Woo-hoo! What's happening? Did you see them Cowboys? Did you see that?
Oh,
Did
my
you
God.
see that?
My God.
Did you see them Sooners?
Oh, my
Did
God.
you see them
I
Sooners?
seen them,
That's
and I
what
was
I'm
proud
talking
of you,
about.
man. I mean, you guys deserve a win, so
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm doing good, baby boy. You just ready for
But that's
Thanksgiving?
good,
How
man.
about yourself?
Man, I'm great because today we have Malachi Gross, life coach, transformational specialist, and we're just going to dive into his life, what he's been up to. And as you well know, he just released Why Trump. It's a docu-series that's been taking place. I believe it's 4 series, but he'll kind of get into all of that and what's that about, how is it produced, and how is it going, and all the things that has been transpiring. I mean, it's right on point of where we are right now. So without further ado, Malachi Gross, man, how are you? Welcome.
Wonderful, brother. Wonderful.
Welcome
Welcome to the show, baby.
Man, it's going to be fun.
Absolutely.
You right about that.
Well, man, let's just dive into it. Just give us a little bit about who is Malachi. A little bit background. You grew up in, I believe, Ohio?
No, born and raised in Kansas.
Okay.
But of course, you know, our kind of tie, getting straight to, I end up in Tulsa because of the fact that I went to Oral Roberts University. I went to Oklahoma West. So I went to Oral Roberts and I went for multimedia and communication. I mean, you know, it was called the Institute. It was a very powerful, in-depth program that you basically ran all of the Richard Roberts and the school's media production for like 2 years. It was intensive. So I did that I had already worked for 10 years in the special education, developmental disabilities, psychology background. You know, I was doing that for, 10 years. And so by the time I'm like 30 years old, I decided, you know what, I want to go to school, and I had a spiritual mentor, and, he was like, go to Oral Roberts, and, how we are coming from Church of God in Christ and going to Oral Roberts was kind of like the creme de la creme when it comes to really learning, your craft, whether it be preaching or teaching or Bible or, media. Cause I mean, literally Oral Roberts I remember Pearson told me that it was like Johnny Cash and Oral Roberts in Hollywood, because he established his own studio. Literally, it was Billy Graham and Oral Roberts as the kingpins when it comes to television and evangelism and getting their ministry on the television, which basically, to me, that created and then Carlton doing it, created this gospel Hollywood. That's the reason why you have so many mega pastors today, is because of the craft. And I'll tell you, man, I learned a lot in Oral Roberts, which one of the things that led me to Wayman Tisdale, Carlton Pearson, and Miles Monroe, and who else? Ernest King, Martin Luther King's daughter. I've worked with quite a few prolific people in the space, personal branding. And so Oral Roberts, Oklahoma Wesleyan, did my master's, and then been here in Tulsa ever since. Got on with Wayman Tisdale for a couple years, became his assistant and right-hand man consulting. And then that led to Carlton. In the meantime, I was working with all kinds of different people. You know how it is.
Speaking of Wayman,
circle.
You produced the documentary.
The Wayman Tisdale story.
Correct.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on YouTube, but it's on Amazon. maybe Tubi, but the Wayman Tisdale story, which was really fun. You know, what a time of my life. Being 30 years old, and Wayman Tisdale, he was probably 46 at the time, and he just scoops you up and says, man, I want you to take you on the road. And
That's cool.
You know, that's a good way to see LA.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
But that was Wayman.
I miss that dude. I miss him dearly. I always say the landscape would be much different if that guy was still around musically. I mean, he would own everything. It would be him and Charlie, period.
Mm.
That guy was a producer. Most people have no idea that Fred Hammond and Mary and I mean, SWV, I'm really still cool. He's out there. Brian Morgan Anderson, who produced SWV, like Wayman was involved with that. He was involved in the early.
That's his baseline.
Yeah.
Well, man, I got a lot of questions for you concerning this docuseries, and I know our listeners are going to want to know about it. So what we know is that you've been in the background, you've been in film and television, and you've been, recording and all that good stuff. But tell me about this Why Trump? And I'm not going to disrespect your thing. I mean, I don't know if you're the good guy or the bad guy, right now. And I'm wanting you to convince me that you is a good brother, because I'm gonna let you know I lost a whole lot of relationships with people, and I can really speak on it now, because they voted or they were Trump supporters, and I'm talking about some close friends that I just don't really just talk to like that anymore behind that. But I want you to tell your story about this Why Trump. And what made you want to get involved with something like that?
Oh, man. Brother, we look for stories. My dear friend, best friend, his name is Brian Shordorf, and we've been doing filming and traveling the world together for many years. He's the kind of the director, and so I get involved with producing and the other pieces of it. And so we just finished another film called Chicago at the Crossroads. And that was 2019, won a few Emmys on that. And it's based in Chicago on housing and how basically a lot of the issues that we have within the spaces of redlining Black neighborhoods. I'm in Tulsa. I live quasi North Tulsa in Gilcrease Hills. So you have these neighborhoods, North Tulsa, North Little Rock. I mean, anywhere you go, you have these neighborhoods. And in Chicago, it was a place that you really were able to really define it and see what the issues were. And that's Chicago at the Crossroads. And it talks about redlining, talks about housing, and how housing was one of the biggest things that separated us as American Africans, in the sense that we are not having upward mobility. It was really a housing issue, which led to a lot of other things. A lot of things that people live off today is because you have 2 generations of getting loans and getting housing. And, they build these huge towers, and it was for the government, it's like government contracts, outdoor elevators. You have to watch Chicago at the Crossroads, because it really lays down a lot of historic fact, because we go deeper into the understanding of what it means when you have segregation and then you don't have opportunity, and then they develop projects. And that stemmed. So 2019, we're just finishing out Black American Film Festival, Miami, having a good time. 2020 rolls around, and we start hearing early, like, there's something going on, December or whatever. We start hearing something's going on, and something's weird. By February, it's, Trump's online talking like Trump does. By the summer of 2020, Brian's like, I got to get out of Chicago with what's going on. I'd rather be, in Kansas. He's originally from Wichita. I'd rather be from there on the farm there with you in Tulsa than being stuck in Chicago with all this going on. So basically, of course, if you remember 2020, there's a lot of shit going on between like Trump and what Trump has to say. And then you have the kid that went down there and had his AR-15 or whatever and went to in Wisconsin or somewhere.
Minnesota, I believe.
Yeah, yes. And he basically shot a couple of people. So in the meantime, Brian is like going out and just collecting footage of this different little situations. 2020 comes around and Trump says, I'm coming to Tulsa to start my campaign. And we're like, what? No, you're not doing that.
On Juneteenth weekend.
And he schedules it for Juneteenth.
Down Black Wall Street, yeah.
And it was like, no, are you kidding, right? Brother, he announced that he says he's coming, and that's when we didn't schedule out to do this doc. It just was like, boom, we're going downtown, we're cameraing up, and we're filming. And just we begin to catalog footage in 2020 all the way up until 2024. Brian's going to the inauguration. Brian's crazy. He's a crazy white dude. As well, I was like, they're going to find you out, bro. And you because we found out in different places that in order for us to get what we want, one, I don't want to go to some of those places. And two, it's better if I don't go to some of those places because we found out that if he's there filming and doing his thing,
think he's one of them.
He's fine. The one time he called me over when we were doing all this stuff and, you know, all these Trumpers are in one side of downtown and then you go to Juneteenth and you can film and it's like people are partying. They're having a good time. And so we got all this on footage. And mind you, that was 1 year to 2021, the 100-year anniversary. So we began to film and we got classic footage. We got footage that you can't imagine with people on the streets just going in whenever it comes to like having conversations and talking and some people just being stupid. One man was like, so were you a slave? Like he said that to me. And so we're able to kind of dialogue, but at the same time, film the tension. And from that point, it just began to just build. And that's when Rudolph Giuliani and Roger Stone and you name it, Scaramucci. And like Brian began to get a lot of people because Brian ended up talking to a guy and the guy was like, hey man, you're doing a documentary. It's like, if you do some promo videos for me as a Republican, if you do some promo videos for me, I'll get you some interviews. And Brian was like, okay. Mind you, Brian's the dude that goes into Inglewood, deep Chicago, and says, oh, all right, I'll shoot two brothers like with guns and everything. I'll shoot you a music video if you give me this interview. And this means so we were really, just to fast forward, it's like every incident. So from 2021, we were recording whenever it was a somber moment whenever they actually had the 100-year anniversary. 2022, like anytime you had an event that was going on, we were there or we had somebody there. 2021 insurrection, we was just like, Brian, hey, I'm hiring 2 dudes to go film. Trump's gonna be there. Who knows what's gonna happen? It ends up being like a full blown, like, let's take over the Capitol, honky tonk people. We got footage where people were falling, breaking their legs. Like, we got footage where that, if you want to know if it's staged or not, we just had a guy out there that was just filming, just capturing footage. And none of us could believe like that really happened. And so we filmed, like so much. And we got, David Banner, who is a phenomenal person when it comes to talking about these various issues, Bishop Carlton's in it. There's quite a package, even one particular episode is going to be based on Tulsa, a massacre, and kind of like Donald Trump not knowing what it is. And so we kind of dovetail into the stories of, the stories. It was originally called Somewhere in America, but the agent was like, this is going to be better if it becomes White Trump. And then that kind of backlashed because so many people was like, White Trump? You care for Trump? Like, you're for Trump. So
yeah,
him being
like me,
that really had a backlash. Now that Trump's in, people are saying, why Trump? Because here's the caveat that I'm going to tell you, is that if you go to suburban cities and you go to rural cities, the whole juxtaposition of this film has to do with Donald Trump being in Chicago. He can easily film Trump Tower and you can go to, New York and film it. And just the essence of who Donald Trump really is versus these people in Sedan, Kansas that have refrigerators or, different places, have refrigerators in their front yard talking about like, I can't imagine if we don't have Trump. And like, it's the juxtaposition of like the small town is dying, but you really believe that this man is really actually for you when really the record shows that he's playing you and he's not for you. He's really against you. And so, but what we do is we try to, as best we can, be, what would I say, objective in the sense that we truly want to show these people's connection to who he is. And I think the broader picture, a friend of mine, his name is White George, and he talks about racism, and he's a social media superstar. But it's like, now we're getting into this poor white people that, you know, we had poor blacks and then blacks that may not be poor, but then you got poor whites that it seems as that he's not necessarily for, or what he's talking about, he's not necessarily for when you look at his overall record. And so why Trump is more of a, what would I say, kind of behind the scenes deep dive. If you were to go to a Trump rally and see what some of the, just see what these people really have to say.
So in other words, you were on a COVID mission to bring it out for us to see how these stupid people really feel. And, when you think about that, when Donald Trump first started his first campaign, when he first started out, he was an independent. He wasn't a Republican. And then he was on his independent ticket, and all he was doing was there to bash Republicans and Democrats. And each week, or they had those debates, he was still around, and people didn't understand. And it was like he won. And the thing that he started his whole campaign on was going around telling people that Barack Obama wasn't American. He, show us your birth certificate. We don't believe that you're American. And those who didn't want the black man in office in the first place, they just took hold of that. And then he just started, spiraling out of control. Hey, I can say what I want to say. People ain't get ready to do nothing. They gonna stand behind me. And he's proven that to be, true the case. So much hatred based upon race. Let's think about with this election here. If we just said Kamala Harris was running on the Democratic ticket, and we never knew what race she was, how would she have done? But just because the quick spin he had on there, I never knew she was black. That was enough to reinforce the whole thing. Hey, I'm going up against somebody black. We've been through the Black White House before. Do you want that again? And that's, my spin on that. And for every black man who couldn't vote for a black woman to be in office, I don't give two shits about them, period. And like I said, I know it ain't what Big Sean mad about, but I mean, shit, I got some shit on my chest.
I understand, man. We all got to vent. I mean, everyone's still venting.
And
during these times, not everyone get out how they can get it out, when they can get it out.
Yeah. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I am militant as I can be with mine. Yeah. I was there I stopped what I was doing and got back home to Tulsa when he was talking about, I want to come down and see Black Wall Street. You done had all this time in your whole damn life to bring your ass on Greenwood and see what Black Wall Street looked like. But you're going to wait until Juneteenth celebration on top of that, and then thinking that, you're going to have a big old campaign. But all I can say, there were some good white people in this world. For the trickery that the white folk did to him, went and put them fake registrations and showed that he had 1 million plus people who want to come. And that's why he had to do the overflow outside the Bank of America arena. They did the overflow and put those parking lots and turn them into sub-stages. And because they thought that they were going to have over 1 million people, the biggest campaign ever. They love me in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And wait a minute.
They love them around the world.
But there was only 3,800 people that showed up in that damn arena. How about that?
Let me ask the question, Malachi. I seen some of the trailers and so forth. When you were saying some of the not so wealthy Caucasians that are living in these small towns, that whatever was their factories or whatever, it seems like they can't grasp that evolution is always changing. Everything is changing, and those factories are not coming back. So those jobs are not coming back. Things are moving. And to me, it looks like they're in a delusion. So, of course, you have the strong man, and he's their savior. So just trying to, you can kind of unpack that, the psychological.
Oh, yeah.
of that.
I mean, honestly, the mastery of Donald Trump is kind of like, you don't have to be brilliant and a superstar in order to master a thing. And so Steve Jobs was a brilliant man, but he mastered something that Steve Wozniak was kind of the programmer and the creator behind Apple. And then you have engineers and everything else. And Steve Jobs was kind of like the face, and he was an innovator. Elon Musk is very similar. He's actually an engineer, but he's still very influential in his prowess and understanding how to work with people. Donald Trump did the same thing he learned everything he needed to know when he did The Apprentice. He's always wanted to be in TV. He did little cameo spots here and there, Home Alone and things of that nature. But when he did The Apprentice, he really learned how media worked and ratings worked. He was always concerned with the ratings during that era. And so he really understood and would hire certain people. His social media guy at the time, he would hire certain people that, whenever of course, the birther came prior to that, but then he hired someone that was really good at political marketing. And that's how they came up with Obamacare. And they come up with very good trend phrases that they're able to trend with. And he was able to really master television, really master media, and understanding that the same ploy that he's used to connect to poor rural whites, along with it's easy for him to connect to middle class and upper class whites with business. And so if you layer on the fact that we've always used some level of Christianity, and now we can understand the level of Christian nationalism. All these things play a major, major role. It's like the perfect storm, if you will. And so if you go back with Donald, he just understand how to master the camera, and he didn't care if it was good or bad. And if it worked for him, it worked for him. If it didn't work for him, he didn't really necessarily care. And so being able to use a lot of it is just history. This is something that they have been doing to especially white people that would be considered in the same boat as Black people. They've been doing this in history for many years, where they get them to believe that, okay, you're not Black, so you're at least that much better. And you can kind of, both you guys being from Tulsa, you can kind of see the semblance in West Tulsa, how West Tulsa was developed, and how you have Charles Page, right? I believe his name was, and how he was really for the West Side. And he actually was a person that developed homes and housing for people that left Black Wall Street along Sand Springs. There's a whole history there where there was housing developed. I believe it was Charles Page that developed this housing. And so there was a combination, there was like a mixture of Black and white people, but then there's like this segregation of white people being able to have the privilege of being white without saying that, and then Black people still being Black. That's the reason why there's a lot of poor white people that have a lot of issues with wealthy Black people, in the sense that you don't have any, look at my privilege, you don't have no privilege, and so that whole combination of all that allowed Trump to use that and know that as long as I get them religiously and politically, they can't deny me no matter what, because they have to go with that narrative. You have to make it where he's a David, or you got to make it where he's someone that can get away with, others can't get away with, as an actual sin. And a lot of that is psychological. A lot of that has to do with cognitive dissonance. A lot of it has to do with a lot of psychology and psychosis. And there's part of what we're going through, we need to go through, to be honest. And they were able to dupe a lot of Black folks within the current system. And I think a lot of that is, hopefully it will shake up even the Democratic Party in its whole guise of, who they still ended up putting in Biden, an elderly white man. Whenever, when Trump was leaving, pretty much anyone could have probably beat Trump at that moment and at that time. And so it's kind of like this whole system. And I'm here to tell you, Trump is really good at understanding that there are truly issues within our government. We all know that. And he's able to paint that picture as in, like, you see this problem, and then he gets a little wild and crazy and throws out a wild and crazy. But then he ends up gaslighting you because he just says what he needs to say to kind of get your ear and get your attention. And then, of course, as you know, he does his thing. It's no reason that it's with purpose that he selected a lot of celebrities, a lot of people with TV time, a lot of people with understanding TV, a lot of people with connecting to an audience as cabinet members, because you get the richest man in the world to actually be one of your support. I mean, he would probably even struggled more without Elon Musk, him and his influence and his ability to go on Joe Rogan and influence younger white males and a lot of the alpha, if you will, that like, oh, Trump is a man, he could fight. Yeah, he's a whore. He's,
he could take a bullet.
He it's like they really played masculinity of
that was part of the marketing campaign. That was part of, from the very first stage, when you seen him take one to the earlobe, I said, now watch, they're going to build behind that. He fight for America. If they even try to kill me and I'm standing here, you can't take me out. And I already knew what the play was. Anyway.
Yeah, that's I'll tell you, brother, it was a hard one to beat, period. And good and well, with intention. It was all weird. It was weird with the Republican Party picking him. It was super weird with the Democratic Party not getting this 80-something-year-old man out of there, this incompetent with his mobility. It makes it really tough. And heck, Trump is too old when it comes to, he's going to be in the same shape or worse whenever he's middle of this or leaving. That's a difficult, at 48, I'm like, good God, like I can't imagine somebody being 79 years old taking office.
Wanting to. But, when you were talking about rural America, I watched your documentary and I would say, good job on that. Brian and your whole team, y'all did a good job with that. I noticed that when you were in the rural areas, there was not any Black folks in either one of these small towns at all. When you went to the high school to show their graduation, there's not one Negro in the whole school. And he had these populations of 11,000, 5,000, 2,200, and so on and so on in Dixon, Illinois. Nobody cares about no Dixon, Illinois. Who cares about that's where Reagan was born? And what about me? Where was I born in? That's what we need to talk about. You know what I'm saying? But I'm from a small town in Oklahoma, and I grew up in that same thing of the refineries, and they come through and just use up the railroad, of what we call the hood, the Ville, the bottom, all of that good stuff. And the runoff from the refinery, cause cancer in so many folks there. We had a place in my hometown called Greasy Creek. And it was Greasy Creek because on days when they doing the runoff, the water would come through here and it created a little creek. And it'd be sudsy and with rainbow colors and bubbles and all that kind of stuff. And we as kids, we ain't know no better. We thought it was soap. We going to go swim in this shit. Remember that wood backstroke? Oh, up in the Greasy Creek. And a lot of us came out, shot out in the head, mentally challenged. How you doing?
Man, it was intentional to a degree that it's like when a person views a film like that, you can view a film with a Black person from those same cities. But when people watch those films, they don't see that, right? Black people are seen as Black people. White people are seen as the array of white people. You get what I mean? Mm-hmm. The array. So with intention, and plus when you look at America, like when you look at America and you look at a white rural neighborhood, brother, that's there are 1 million people in the Tulsa metro, 2 million in the Oklahoma City metro. That means there's probably 1.5 million people that cover the entire rest of the state in terms of square footage. Now, if you take that and you put that same exact math to Atlanta, you put that, there will be blacks out there, but you put that math to Arkansas, you put that math to Texas, that you'll see that is a big chunk of America, especially in the South. A big chunk of America is these all white towns that they don't necessarily, and they hate the city. They're against the city. Remember that song? Do this at a small town, right? And it was kind of repping. That was a song that was repping and repping for small towns. And if you look at what the whole artistry, I don't even think the person that sung the song wrote the song. That was just a song that was made for that person's base, right? That base of, I'm going to write a song. That song was not, I'm writing this song against the people in the city. That is like, I'm writing a song that I know millions of people that are proud to say I'm a redneck. I'm proud to say I'm country, right? That was tailored for them. And so when you look at why Trump, a lot of that has to do with, because there's other segments, like you see the first segment on TV, but there's other segments that dovetail deeper into certain ideas or ideologies. One of them will go deeper into religion, but when we go deeper into religion, we'll go more broad, if you will, with how religion, man, I was telling Brian, my next documentary would have to be based on theology, spirituality, religion, and how it juxtapositions and literally is the hotbed for politics. And so many of us, and I hate to say it, but especially as Black folks, they blindly, as a mystic, as a person that investigates, a person who contemplates, as a person that asks questions, Black folks, we can quickly go into African spirituality and then certain levels of African history when it comes to, spirituality. But it's hard for us to contemplate all of it, the big picture of when it comes to having the discussions with spirituality and theology. We have been doing the church thing for so long that it makes it really, 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 really difficult for us as a people to recognize or see colonization and the stories of how this come together. Just if you go you go to a random church in America with Black folks and you ask them about King James being gay or the Council of Nicaea, or you start asking them little small things about Martin Luther, it's like they would have the slightest idea of what you're talking about. And they would run. Honestly, we were taught long ago to run and not necessarily, and honestly, the people that Trump did win, he won a lot of Black vote on masculinity, hardness, and the other piece he won on with Black folks is 100% hands down Jesus Christ, said like that.
That's it.
Well,
nationalism.
How could he have won with that when he having press conferences and talking about, well, I like you, Christian. I'm not a Christian, but I love you, Christians. And then turn around and come up with his own Bible. And where I'm from, with Black folks, you're writing your own Bible. That's called blasphemy. And you ain't coming in this house talking like that. You better not come in here talking about, well, yeah, Jesus told me that I can write my own Bible. Well, please, that's backhand for real. And what I know, the Black folks voted for Trump because they felt that he's a money guy. And if Black people who had some money felt like if they were going to bet on something, I'm betting on him for these next 4 years so I can get my bank up, my portfolio is going to look better. That's what Black folks who have a little bit of money, what they were thinking. And they were thinking that, Harris was going to bring them down.
That and many other things. We all know the media talked about it, unfortunately. His name was on the checks during COVID.
Yeah, $50,000.
You got, I won't even say his name, but just because this one guy I know just because he's in crypto. That's his reason, only reason. So blacks are not monolithic. We all have our own reasons, but it was the perfect storm. The perfect storm was set up because of authoritism. We are used to that. Church folks is used to that. We need someone to lead us,
to tell us what to do.
We need the pastor to lead us. So that, and Trump tapped into that. He treats them still like they're his congregation. He's the pastor, and the pastor can't do no wrong. That's why he can do and have done everything he has, and now all charges are dropped. I have a problem with that. Where do we really go from here?
Wait a minute.
Because
what charges dropped? What charges are dropped?
Oh, yeah. The federal charges, as of yesterday, I can't think of, I got a brain for it, the special counsel that was appointed. Yeah, he dismissing those cases. He's pulling them.
Oh, you know those charges. I mean, you can't be a president of the United States.
The 34 felony, yeah. I mean, I never understood.
No, the conviction is that part is going to stay, but the ones that were in the work.
Oh, okay.
Those are being dropped. Now, the state charge in Georgia, I don't know how that's going to play out, and then the other stuff, the state charge in New York, I'm not sure. But the federal charges, that stuff in Mar-a-Lago, when he took the documentaries,
gotcha.
Yeah.
and the other case of the insurrection, those are gone. So Trump understands how energy works.
Okay.
He understands how church folk work, and what they have done and what they always been doing, they have really did the mojo on us. Where attention goes, energy flows. This was all, when I say spiritual, it's all energy. So yeah, this was spiritual. They know how to manifest, and he's manifesting. Forgot who his teacher was all these years. Trump understands that. He understands how to manifest. And with all those other compartments, knowing how to manipulate media, knowing how to manipulate people, having that authoritarian pastor presence, they bought into it. And the fear can harness so much energy so quick, and he know how to do that. And he just beat it in him. Fear, that fear just gaining energy. The attention, that's tension. Now all the attention energy is going over there. So Malachi, our ancestors knew how to alchemize. Unpack that a little bit of spiritually, of how they manipulated the energy.
It's, if we go there, brother, and if we knew our own true power outside of what we have been taught, what spirituality even is, being able to separate it from the understandings of institutionalized religion, and being able to understand, you wouldn't even have the churches the way you have them today, as the African-American churches are, based on just the fact that, can you imagine if you take away the B3, the music, the praise dance, the movement, we added that. And if you take that away, you take one major element that holds us together today, is being able to shout, being able to go and express and deal with our trauma, PTSD and CPT, complex post-traumatic stress syndrome, right? So we're able to go there, and we're able to cry, and we're able to scream out, and we're able to express ourselves. And it started many years ago. Even Bishop C.H. Mason, who was the founder of the Church of God in Christ, who worked through the Pentecostal movement in Charles Parham, and which had some racist undertones. And there was, within that whole sector or that movement, it was seen as weird and kind of like not necessarily what they were used to. And it was considered something that kind of an outsider. And clearly Bishop C.H. Mason was using his grandmother's hoodoo practices, mixing plant-based medicines and roots and various different things from the African culture. And he was laying on hands, the way they would do tongues and the way they would do movements and music and all that. That was all undertones of what we had. And on my show, I had a guy that is Pan-Africanist, and he displayed, and he had some video, or I think it was some video pictures of how you would have a white man inside a lot of the slave churches, making sure that, you guys can do this as long as you do Jesus, as long as you do this. And that is just the surface level of understanding of how we got to where we are, not moving into just understanding Western Christianity versus Eastern Christianity, understanding that, yes, Jesus was a figure or person that had a whole nother story outside of the West, outside of basically Catholicism, and white people taking it and creating their narrative that's very similar to a lot of other stories. And then moving that story along, and actually then is like, hey, I like this religion and I like how this has a certain power and control over people. Never did those people know 1600, 1611, 1500, 1600. They didn't have any idea that the human complex has a piece of it that is connected to, it's not necessarily just needing a savior, but is part of the human complex to have kind of an attraction and have this, as far as this, I call it the infinite intelligence, basically this yearning to go and to seek out, right? And then the institution, the system helps you with a natural thing that you already will deal with as a human being, right? You will naturally gravitate towards these ideas or these ideologies. And so with the way Christianity is in the West and the system, and I mean, even right now today, if a person was to experience like Michael Todd's church, it's basically Carlton Pearson's church that he had in the 80s and 90s. And then you put a 35-year-old with social media, right? You're able to have this epic service. You're able to have this epic music that really caters towards a specific audience. And then you label that as a deity we call God and ultimate supreme, like everything you have and everything you want is within this understanding. And what's crazier is a lot of the people that are doing those things, they are actually fully drinking the Kool-Aid also. Like they've drunk the Kool-Aid all their whole life and they're drinking the Kool-Aid. And after seeing Bishop Carlton Pearson's, a lot of people have second thoughts of what it would be like to disconnect and lose everything. And then the other second thought too is like the fact that you will actually possibly have, I deal with people that's having post-traumatic stress and they having mental issues with accepting themselves and accepting who they are. And so if you look at our ancestry, us as Black people and who we are, the thing is, I'll tell you is, I believe that when we experience and go through something like this with Trump, this is kind of a little bit of Buddhism involved where you deal with suffering. And how do you understand what's good if you don't understand what's bad? Duality. If you've had a great living all your life and you always had the silver spoon, it's really hard for you to understand basically what it would be like compared to someone else that didn't have the silver spoon. So you only compare your bad to what your standard is. And so if I grew up with gold spoons, to have a plastic spoon versus to have no spoon may be my lowest. And so we're kind of set up right now. If we really tap in and tune in where we can begin to reach our higher self and actually tap into some of our ancestry that is alive within us today. I think they said it's like 14 generations, like your nose is your nose, you get it from your dad. And then where'd your dad get it from? Where did your grandpa get it from? Where did you, right? All these things that you inherit, like on your physical body, no one has said that you don't or can't inherit something within the mind, right? You can't inherit something, even our spirit or spirituality. So the thing is, our people, if you look at history, them being able to do what they do, I believe that a lot of that had to do with how we become who we are today in terms of a people, plant-based medicine. I mean, 100% as an experiencer, the plants will actually teach people. And so therefore, if you imagine people roaming the earth and foraging and looking for food, how did they was it just a zap, a whammo, get knowledge? Or was it also included with the fact that they already had deeper intuition because they didn't have the technology that actually makes it easier for everyone to experience a phone call, right? You'd have, oh, he can talk to people. He can talk to dead people. He can sense people across the world. He can sense it, right? His intuition's developed. And now we have phones and everyone can communicate and connect. But as we go through what we now call deconstructing, as we deconstruct our reality, deconstruct our faith, deconstruct, and basically that's just saying, I'm going to question and ask the question, is the way I've heard about Jesus actually 100% a solid fact in my life, and I believe it 100% just as I've been told? Or has there been other things, right? Other stories. It starts with that, right? In being Black, we have a lot of Black history and understanding like what true Black history is. You can't tell me, here's something that I always say. You can't tell me what truly happened 100 years ago in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So how are you going to tell me what happened 2,500 years ago in another country, in another era, in another time zone, in another level of consciousness? Like you can't,
believe it.
You have to believe and literally you have to believe. Therefore, it's taking your belief and it's taking your belief system and dumbing you down to not understand how infinite you are. Like we have people creating sorcery devices. Around us. This is pure sorcery. Mm-hmm. Being able to do it, if you're able to astral project and say, okay, I am coming from the 15th century and I am in this world. You know what? I'm confused. I can't figure it out. It's no different than if you get into a car right now that is like, I've been driving my wife's new car and it's just, there's something about my psyche whenever I go by a semi and this car this semi is sensing where I'm going. And I'm just sitting here letting this car drive, a car pull out in front of me and the car brakes. It's just something to do with my consciousness of being in this era, in this time where it's just all of a sudden driving itself. And so it's kind of like, that's just technology. So imagine like I study various spiritual people that are actually scientists, like Dr. Federico Fagan, who is the one that developed the first microprocessor. And now we're getting into quantum computers and also quantum theory. But we're pulling from these various once esoteric spaces.
Oh, see, people will do that over Apostle Paul or whatever they favorite preaching. But when you said him, I get excited about those people now. Right? This man explained quantum bits so he explained the quantum realm so
eloquently.
I like, but yeah, go ahead, man.
Brother, thing is, here's the thing. We're so far behind consciously in religion and our belief system is dumbing us down that we can't even fully grasp the fact of what a cell phone is and what a cell phone does, what AI is and what AI does. In the meantime, Elon is focused on going to Mars and he's focused on doing stuff that is utterworldly, like unbelievable. And the thing is, it's like nobody asked him about necessarily religion and belief. And when he does, he has like a beautiful dance around it. And when it comes to us, here's the thing, the minute that we understand, and I'm talking specifically to Black people, there's a guy that I follow. His name is Jeffrey Kripal, and he has a book called Superhumanities. And there's an interview that you can follow online. He was on Brandon's partner's show. You're a publisher, and Brandon, I guess you guys have the same publisher. And Brandon has a foundation. And anyways, Jeffrey Kripal is on there, and he talks about the superhumanities and the ability of what humans have. And this is a white man, and he actually begins to talk about the Black race and their connection to what we would almost consider like the original race, right? The original human, right? And what does that truly mean? And if you go throughout history, you can go throughout early history and realize and understand the magnificence of the Black human being, right? And I'm not talking about African American. I'm just talking about a melanated human being, right? If we can truly understand and we can literally break away from the confines of religion, and we can break away from the confines of what that says that we're capable of, literally, human beings human beings have no choice but to improve. Whatever it is that we use to get there, it's like we don't have a choice but to get there. And AI as something that would take over, it's really not AI to be afraid of. It's the human being that's able to use that for the betterment of themselves. And they could actually also use that against you. And clearly it is happening right now, today. Literally, it's happening today. And people are using this technology and using AI to actually work against you. And the thing is, we have the ability and we can have the connection to do this for ourselves. But we have a lot to deconstruct in our lives and in our minds. And I'll go as far as to say is this, guys, I'm not talking about a bunch of church folk. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about hood niggas that'll be like, yeah, I'm pray, yeah, Jesus, or I'm talking about the ones that are just like not going to church, but yet though they think spirituality is referencing Jesus and God and referencing Christianity and referencing going to grandma's church. And I believe in the same token, I believe there are a lot of people that are coming into an understanding. I believe as we have what we call as collective consciousness, that's a psychology thing, getting into Carl Jung and some of those other psychologists over the years, where we have the collective consciousness. And what happens is when we have this conversation as a collective and post it online, that consciousness then actually can go out, right, to the world and vibrate. Trump and Elon and all what they had, that's a collective, regardless of what they say, that's a collective consciousness. And if I could put that I could put out an ill consciousness. I could put out a consciousness that says something that is bad, that is good, or I can say that something is good and say it's bad and put that out there. And eventually people begin to believe it. And eventually people can actually that's the reason why you'll get a vote. Literally, this thing is so powerful. If you want to begin to start curing cancer, people need to start believing that they are already cured of the cancer. And you do that in collective numbers. You start getting into the quantum realm and the quantum understanding, just the minuscule ideas of quantum physics, right? Just small. And that's just a matter of the fact that I breathe oxygen and I put out what the world wants. It's an energy exchange. Like, this is just working. This is the way the universe works. We take the little small things in the witness of the phenomenon of being human, surviving the planet, and then being able to co-create within the universe. It's so far beyond that we are capable of doing it. Now we're at a point where, going back to what you originally asked about the ancestors and alchemizing and being able to, all those things have been so demonized by the church. Literally, the church wasn't doing it just to Black folk. The church was doing that long before, when they were, the Salem witch trials. And they were just basically, they went out to kill women that were practicing medicine or practicing. They weren't actually brewing up anything to come against these people. They began to, I heard today, there were Rosicrucian, there were Universalists, there were atheists, agnostic. That was some of the founding fathers were all, it's a complete lie that you had one-centered Christianity in America and they founded it. And it was like, those people were trying to get away from, there's a big chunk of them that was trying to get away from Catholicism. And then there was a chunk of them that, you had Quakers, you had the Masons, right? Which was dealt a lot with Rosicrucianism and a lot with mysticism, right? It's just been painted over the last 200 years roughly, and really over the last 150 years, that like Christianity from a Western Christian nationalist perspective of how we view the Bible, how we view Jesus, has been what it is today. And then they use mass media to actually make us feel like that there is essentially one reference to God, one reference to Christianity. And if you veer or come away within that belief system, all of a sudden you are either ostracized or something other out of this world. What's really interesting is how Mormonism, which is one of the most wealthiest churches on the planet, Catholicism money is broken up and is in assets, right? It's in land and things of that nature. Mormons have cash on hand, right? And they're actually like literally they're at billions, and literally like they could probably professional teams over and over again, 250 billion. And the thing is, I'm actually seeing their work, like literally, brother, they're spending tens of thousands of dollars right now today with 18 to 25-year-old, 18 to 22-year-old people, specifically white females. And every once in a while they'll drop some males and maybe one black person. And they're dropping it in Snapchat and ads like, come to see us. You might need Jesus Christ in your life when you feel like you're down. That's the whole thing is if you're feeling down, you need Jesus. And they'll paint the picture of Jesus, and then later on, they'll give you the Book of Mormon and pull you into this very, very cultish environment that basically saying we're right, everyone else is wrong. You got to do what we say if you want to make it fear, shame, guilt. And we've been playing this thing
just
before.
Like Jehovah's Witnesses.
It's exactly like the Jehovah's Witness. And there's a lot of us trapped into that and get trapped into that based on the fact that they tell the Jesus Christ story. And then from the Jesus Christ story, they go from Jesus Christ into here's our system.
Right.
And why
how this story benefits us. And it could to you benefit you if you believe like us. But look at here, man. Let's zoom in for a second here. Are there any follow-ups to your documentary of why Trump? Do you have anything else? Is there a part 2 of the story of why Trump, or
there's multiple
assassination parts? That's got to be a big story. Yeah.
Honestly, a lot of Trump is going to deal. Honestly, Trump will deal more with, and it will be hard, and he will deal more with what I consider the natural laws of human being and living, especially as a narcissist. And that is being so truly deeply in love with this dimension. And this dimension can be snatched away from you pretty quick, especially whenever you hit 79, 78, 79, 80, 81, all those years right there are even more precious. And so he could just in that time frame of being able to survive a 2024 presidency outside of assassination, the true assassination that's happening inside your body. That's the thing. That's the thing that.
Well, that ain't happening fast enough. I can tell you, that shit is not happening fast enough. If we talk about COVID-8, hell, I know folks, you go to the doctor and they say, well, you know what? You got cancer. Really? Well, how does it look? Well, you got 72 hours to live. Get your affairs in order. Why does this nigga here get to stick around so damn long? I just ain't understanding it.
So we can witness it?
Well, no, I ain't trying to see all that. I mean,
it's the last, I will tell you, brother, it's the last, we're working into the last stages of what we have endured for, let's just say hundreds of years, right? Of course, we know, we know it's longer, but let's just talk about America in the sense of we've seen the balance and the way it always leans and the pendulum shifts and shifts and shifts. And the thing is, I just feel like this is kind of necessary because the thing is like I don't know, man. Do you remember you'd be out and about and be like, you won't get it when you get home. And it's like, man, can I just get that over with? I just want to get that experience over with. I do not want to sit there and linger on with this discipline. And the discipline of America right now with truly understanding what white supremacy means versus supremacist, right? Not an individual. We're talking about an ideology that we all can live in, right? That we all have lived in, especially for the last 400 years, the establishment of America, right? And so we have shifted and shifted and shifted. But in order for this next shift that we are having and need to have, the only way I believe that can possibly have is we have to go through what we're going to go through. We have to experience our Underground Railroad, right? And because it really wasn't in the totality of time, that really wasn't that long ago. If you just take civil rights and you take today, the issue that we have right now, I think, is the fact that technology fools us and makes us think that consciousness is being upgraded. When technology has been upgraded, consciousness is moving too slow for the current technology. Going back to what I said about that car, we're not able to even drive our cars or feel like how we're going to be able to drive our cars. We can't even work our phones because our consciousness, our ability to be aware, our ability to connect to the current times, our ability to separate from time, right? Just being, we ain't even taught that, you know what, it's good for your brain. Like, people think about meditation and spiritual. No, nigga, you need to meditate just to have some peace. You need to pause this moment at this time in this space just to understand the power and the ability you have to let Trump go, let time go, let all that go. Because I'll tell you right now, I grew up, and you guys did too, especially us that try to do something in our lives, that we were the ones that were like, I'm not blaming it on the man. Like, we grew up where I can't blame it on the man. I got to come up because the man is going to always be be behind me. It's always going to be creeping up on me. It's always. And so I know the narrative of being Black and you might have to work harder. Being Black, you might have to do this. I know those things to be true, but we move into a space of understanding, and we move into understanding the power and the ability we have within acting as though, going into the feeling as though it's done, actually going into like the stuff we talk about, manifesting, and really getting into understanding that, you know what, I'm a Madam CJ Walker, this bitch. Like, she was in an era and in a time that just kind of like, how you really think about it, like, she's a woman and she gonna be like, you know what, I'm about to start a Black hair care company. We're gonna distribute it. We're gonna make millions, and I'm gonna move next door to the white man. Like, they would be like, what? Are you tripping?
Thank you for tuning in to Prodigal the Podcast. We hope today's episode inspired you to embrace your own journey of self-discovery and transformation. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Join us again next time as we continue to explore the ever-evolving world of culture with your hosts, Don Jackson and Big Sean. Until then, keep discovering, keep transforming, and keep being the amazing person you are.